Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this macrame bracelet, and it looks like this. So this is the effect that you get. I'm using some larger beads here running through the whole middle of the bracelet, and these are just some purple agate that I'm using, but then I have the smaller beads surrounding the larger ones in each section here. So this is just one example. Another one is this, and that's the one I'm going to be showing you in the video how to do. It's the exact same technique, but I can just show you how different looks you can get by using the same technique with just some different materials. So this I think is a bit more daytime and a bit more evening. It all is because of the materials and the colours that I'm using. So if you want to learn how to make these, then keep watching. Now these are the things that I'm going to be using. We'll need our cord first of all. In this case I'm just working with a 1mm satin cord, and I've just chosen this dark pink magenta colour. I thought that would go nicely with the black and the silver beads. And then for the beads I'm using some 12mm black agate here, and they're nicely faceted so they'll give a nice look. And the hole is large enough. You just got to make sure that the hole in them is large enough to go onto your cord. So that's the beads that I'm using, and I just have 7. But again, how many you use depends how large you want your bracelet to be. And then finally here I have some 4mm metal spacer beads, and these are just some stardust ones in a silver colour, because again I thought these colours would go really nicely together, and then that stardust effect on the beads will give a really nice extra sparkle to it. But also what you got to make sure with these beads is that also the hole is large enough for your cord to go through on them as well. So these are just the materials that I'm using. You can swap them over for your own things to create your own design, but otherwise then let's just get all the materials together and then let's get started. So to get started we first need to cut all our cords ready, and what I've done here is I have a short length here that I've already attached to my macrame board with all these notches on. Makes it nice and handy and easy to work with. So you just want a short length of this of about maybe 30 to 40 centimeters, just enough to go around your wrist and then a little bit extra. So this is going to be a holding cord throughout the bracelet, and then we also need to cut another 2 lengths, and these are both going to be the working cords that we're going to actually make the bracelet with. And then one of them needs to be 1.5 meters long, so that's the one we need to cut. And then the other one here needs to be a bit longer, and that needs to be about 2.5 meters long, because that's going to get more work done with this and therefore get used up more. So we need to cut these two as the 2 working cords. So what we need to do is we need to get our working cords attached onto the holding cord here that we already have on the board. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my shortest one first, and then at the ends here just put them together so both ends are level like this, and then hold it out, and then we'll have my finger here is roughly about the middle. So I'm going to keep hold of that with my finger, and then take one end and get it underneath the holding cord here, and then feed that all the way under, so the middle where I have my finger is going to lie underneath the holding cord. And then to attach it, what we need to do is do basically half a square knot. So I'm going to take one side over, I'm just taking my left side, and then the other one goes over that, and then underneath everything in the middle here, like so, and then pull it up through the loop. And then you have your regular knot here, and you tighten it, and then that's attached nicely to your board. So that was the one. And then you want to just do the same with your other length. So this is your long one. Find the middle here, the exact same way, and then get one end, put it underneath to get the middle lying under your holding cord there. And then just the same thing, attach it by making a simple knot. So one side over, the other one underneath everything in the middle, and then up through the loop, and then tighten. So there's your second one now attached, and then you don't have to hold it any longer because they're now attached nice and securely through the middle of your cords there onto your holding cord. So now that we have both our cords attached here, what we need to do now is actually start the macrame part. So first what I'm going to do before we start adding any beads in, I'm just going to do a little section of just my knots. So on this bracelet, as you can see, I just have a little section here of just some knots before we start adding the beads. It's just to give it a little bit more space, but also this is going to sit on the underside of your hand there, or your wrists, and you don't want too many beads on this side that are knocking against it, whether you're sitting by a desk or a table or anything. So that's what we're going to do now. And then what I'm going to do is start with my top cords. So these two, the first one that we attached, it's at the top, and then bring them down over the other ones. So just keep the other ones out to the side. Make sure these are coming over them. And then I'm just going to make a square knot here. So I start with my left side. You can start with the other side if you want to. I just recommend starting with the same side throughout to make it nice and consistent. But then do that and take the other one over that and then underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop. And then tighten it, and then you're basically caging in the knot you attach the other cord with. And then the other side to make it a full square knot. So put the opposite side over, and then the other one underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop. And tighten. So that's your first square knot. If you're a bit unsure about basic macrame knots, I do have a video that shows you a few of them. So you can have a look at that. I'll put a link to that in the description box. So that's the first one. We need to do the same thing with the other one here. So now the ones you just used, put them out to the side, and then bring the ones that are now the top ones down above them. And then you make another square knot using these. So over, other one over and underneath everything. And then tighten. Again, you're now caging in the other knots there that you created with the previous working cords. Full square knot here, and there you go. You've now made 2 full square knots, and then gradually kind of bringing the cords over each other. And how many knots you make of this is really up to you. I'm going to make about 4 in total, so I'm going to bring these next ones down and then do another one with them. Remember to bring the top ones over, and then you just do a few knots here. And like I said, do however many you want. How many knots you make is going to determine how long that little section is going to be of your knots before you start adding in your beads. So now that I've made my 4 square knots here, I'm now ready to start adding in the beads. And what we need to do is we need to add some beads onto this holding cord in the center that we'll be making our knots around. So I'm just going to release that from the bottom of my board here, or whatever you're working on, just release that. And then I'm going to take my larger beads here, and these are my black agate, and then just start feeding them onto this cord. So I've now added all my 7 large beads here to the holding cord. I'm just going to push them down out of the way so we have more space here to work with. And you can always just leave the one up because we're going to be working with one at a time, because these are going to be the ones that are in the center of each section here, running all the way through the bracelet. So now what we need to do is then start making the outside. And then this is where I'm going to bring in my smaller beads. So my metal spacer beads here, and these are just the stardust ones that I'm using. And remember that you need to make sure the hole in them are large enough for this 1mm cord to go through. So what I'm going to do is, first off, we just need to make a knot. What we have now is 2 cords here, or 2 working cords on each side, coming out like this. So you still have the ones further to the top and the ones to the bottom. And then we have this one bead that we're going to be making our rings around now. So what we need to do first is a knot. And what we're going to be using here is actually a vertical lark's head knot. So we take the bottom one of this side, we're just working with one side at a time. So we take this bottom one, and then we're going to be having, this is going to be a working cord now, while this one, the top one, is actually going to be the holding cord. That's what we're going to be adding our beads to. But I'm just going to make one knot first. So what I'm going to do is take this over the holding cord, like so, and then back around, and then back through the loop here. And then when you hold it like this, you get a bit of a reverse 6. And then you want to tighten that, like that. And then because we went over now the first time, what we need to do now with the same cord is go under the holding cord and then pull it back through the loop. So again, you're getting the same shape, a reverse 6, but just looping around the holding cord the other way around, like that. So that's the first knot on here, and now what we need to do is add in our beads to this holding cord. So once you added them to it, you can push them all down. You can either add all of them in one go and just keep hold of them as you're working with it, or you can just add one at a time. That's whatever you feel comfortable with, really. And then just make sure you're only working with one bead at a time, even if you add them all. I'm just going to keep these on my cord and then keep hold of them while I'm working with one at a time. So now that we have this one bead there, what we need to do now is basically cage this in, push it all the way down up against the knot that you just made on the holding cord there, and then you still keep hold of this. And what we need to do now is actually do the exact same thing. So the knot that we just made at the very beginning, we need to do the same thing, but do it so we cage in this bead. So I'm going to take my working cord around the top of my holding cord and then back through the loop, like that. And then when you tighten that, you can see that by doing that, we're going to be caging in the bead. And then to finish off that knot, I'm going to go underneath and then around and back through. So that is how we're achieving those vertical lax head knots. But because it's basically a lax head knot, but we're doing it just with one working cord and kind of go in a different direction. So that's your first one caged in. So now I'm pushing down the next one, doing the same thing, go over, back and around and through, tighten that, and then go under, around and through. And that's your second one. Push the next one down, and then just keep repeating this. So over, around and through, tighten, under, around and through. So just make sure you stay consistent with how you're making your knots. Always start with going over first and then under, and you just keep doing this until you add however many beads you need to fit around your larger one. And now in my case, I know that that's 4 that I need of this size beads, so I push that up and I can see that when I pull this around the side, and then the end of the knots that I've made here are going to fit by reaching back to the main holding cord in the middle here. So that's how I know how many I need. So now what we need to do, we finished that side, we need to move over to the other side here and basically do the exact same thing. So we have the 2 cords. The top one is going to be the holding cord, remember that, just like the other side, and the bottom one the working cord. So onto the holding cord we push on the small beads that we're working with, the same ones on the other side, and now I know I need 4 because that's what I measured on the other side. So just keep them on, and then before we do that, we incorporate them, we just need to make the first knot with the working cord, so bring that over, back around and through. And now what you see is we're doing the exact same thing, only we're doing it the opposite way. So we're doing everything with the opposite hands, just because we're working on the other side of the bead. So that's the first knot. Push one down, one bead, and repeat. So over, around, and through. Tighten, and under, around, and through. And tighten. Like that. And then do that with the rest of the beads as well. So we have the same amount on both sides. So I've now reached the bottom here, added all my beads on the other side as well. So now you can see we have the same on both sides, and they'll both reach around the bead and then get tied on the holding cord here in the center again. So that's what we need to do now. As you can see, what we have on both sides is the same thing. We have the working cords that we used on the sides are the ones that are coming towards the center first. So those are the ones we need to use first, and the other ones just keep them to the side. So what we need to do is tie a square knot with these around the holding cord here where the large bead is on. So take my left one, again you can start with the other side, I just recommend you stay consistent, but it will probably come natural to you which side you start with normally. Take that over and then bring the other side over that, underneath everything in the middle, and up through the loop on the other side, like this. And then bring it up and tighten it, and it will just come a bit loose because you won't be able to tighten it completely and stay in place. So what I'm going to do is just leave that and then do the other side of the knot to finish off, make it a full square knot, and then bring it tight in. Before I tighten it completely, just tighten up these two, the first part of the knot like that, and then just hold your finger over it and then tighten the second part. and now that's nice and tight there. So what we need to do now is lay these down and kind of out to the side. And don't worry too much about this not being completely right shape yet, because we're going to sort that out after. And then we need to bring the other ones that were the holding cords throughout, the ones we haven't used yet, over the ones you just used, like that. And then just put the other ones out of the way so we don't get confused with the cords. And then make a square knot around the same holding cord in the middle here with those. So we're basically now just doing what we did in the beginning up here, making square knots and alternating the cords over each other, like this. And you just tighten them, and there you have your piece tightened now. So this is technically our first little section with a bead added, but what I'm going to do to get into position to start making the next one, I'm actually just going to do one more square knot. So that means in between each section we're going to have 3. So again, I'm going to bring the top ones down over the other ones. So the same principle as the beginning. And then just do one more square knot with those. Because this just makes that little space in between the sections that we need to add in our beads. And finish it up so it's one full square knot. Like so. And then you have your 3 square knots here before we then add the next bead. But as you can see, this is not completely round and tight around the bead there. So what I'm going to do is every time I do a section, I'm going to do this after each section. You need to kind of do it after that. That's the easiest part. Is keep hold of my holding cord like this, and then just grab my knots with my other hand and push them up. Like so. And then they sit a lot nicer and tight around the bead like that, you can see. So remember to do that every time you've made a section where you added in your beads. So now that this is our first section and we're happy with it, move on to the next one. And our cords are already in position for the next section now because we made 3 square knots. I'm going to push my next large bead up in the holding cord in the middle there. And then we need to start working on the sides. And all we do is the exact same thing that we just did. So do one side at a time. The one furthest to the top is going to be a holding cord throughout. And the other one, we're just going to start making one knot first, a vertical axe head knot, over, around and through, and tighten, and then under, around and through, and tighten. And then you want to just add your beads and cage them in as you go. And then remember, like I said, push up every section once you've made your knots down here, so it gets nice and tight around the bead. And then you just continue doing this until you used up all your beads, your large beads here, and you feel like your bracelet's going to be long enough. So I've now finished up using all my beads here, and I've reached the length that I want bracelet to be. And I've ended up with 7 sections, like I said in the beginning, so I'm using 7 of the larger beads here. So what we need to do now is just finish off the end. And I've just gotten to the point again where now I would add another section in, so I've made my 3 square knots. Instead of that, I'm just going to make some more square knots here, just to finish off this end the same way that we did the other end. And I'm just going to achieve about the same length of knots here as the other end. So in this case I'm going to make about 4 or 5 square knots in total here to get the same distance as the other end. So you just want to make another square knot or 2. You can always hold it up against the other end or measure it if you want to. Or you can just count your square knots as well. So we're finishing up this end so they both become nice and even. Like that. That's going to be pretty good, that, size wise. So all that's left to do now is finish off the end. So I've now taken my bracelet off the board because we're done basically making the macrame knots. So what I need to do now is just finish off these ends like I said. And what I'm going to do is, it's just this end, because you can see this is where we have excess cord. In this end where we started it, we don't have any excess cord, just the one running all the way through the bracelet. But I'm going to use that to then make the clasp part of it as well. So we're not going to cut that off. What we need to do is, what I'm going to do is get some glue out. And I like to use my E6000 for this. You can also use something like GS Hypo Cement, that's up to you. But it's nice because it dries clear, so you won't really be able to see it. But also it's really nice and strong. And I just use a toothpick to help apply it. And just get a little bit, because we just want enough just to basically secure the knots in place right at the end here. So we can cut off the excess cord. So just right where the ends of your cord are coming out here from the last few knots that you did. Put some glue on there, and I like to do it on both sides and just around the ends as well. So on top of the knots to help secure the knots in place, like that, and until you feel it's nice and secure. You don't need to put too much glue on there, just enough to feel it's nice and secure. And then you just want to let that dry, and then once that's dry you cut these excess ones off, and then we need to make the clasp. Now I do have a video on how to do that, how to finish off macrame bracelets. You can do it in a few different ways. So what I'm going to do is put a link in the description box to that video, so if you're not sure how to do it, then you can go and have a look at that. So I've now finished off my bracelet by making a sliding knot here. So you can use it just like a macrame bracelet normally. It works like this. And you can obviously choose a different finishing if you want to, but then this is the final bracelet, and it looks a little something like this. So it gives you that really nice effect of your larger beads surrounded by your smaller ones. And then the other one, as you can see, the exact same technique with just different materials, and they can get really different looks out of them. This is a little bit more daytime, I think, where this is a little bit more elegant in evening time. So that's just what you want to do with your own design. So that's how you make this bracelet. So I really hope that you enjoyed this, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to do this intertwining herringbone macrame bracelet, and this is what it looks like. So this is the effect you get with this technique, and I also quite like the way it looks from the side. And then obviously you can choose different colours and different beads and different colours of beads as well.